Welcome everyone to episode 9 of our Cocktails at Home series. This is our Tiki cocktails class. There's a lot going on in these kits. We have, I think it's 15 different liquors, 15 different ingredients with, let's say 8 or 9 different liquors. So it's going to be a lot to go through. I wanted to also take some time with each of the ingredients. We have 4 different rums that are that's part of the kit today. So there is a lot going on, and we are going to take our time and talk about each one of them individually. Don't hesitate to ask a question if you have one. You can either sort of speak up. You can also use the chat box. I will follow that as well as we get started. I don't know about you, but I would really like to get a drink though. And I'd like to start with a cocktail called 3 Dots and a Dash. 3 Dots and a Dash is sort of a less heralded cocktail. It's not as well known as some of the other cocktails that you might think of for Tiki cocktails. This cocktail actually, for anyone that's familiar with Morse code, yeah, I know all of you out there know Morse code very well. 3 Dots and a Dash is the Morse code for V, for the letter V. And this cocktail was made for in the time of the World War II was ending, and it was made to celebrate the victory for the Allies over the Axis powers in World War II. So this one has a little bit less of a history than some of the others, but I think holds up really well. And the cocktail is one of my favorites for the Tiki cocktails. So with that, we're going to go through ingredients. We're going to take a second with each of the ingredients as well and talk about them. We're going to start with the main spirit in the 3 Dots and a Dash cocktail. So rum agricole just means that the rum is made from sugarcane. You can have rum that's made from molasses or a combination of the two, but rum agricole is made with sugarcane. By the way, we are sponsored by Bacardi today. We'll be using some Bacardi rum in 2 of the 3 cocktails, the cocktails that have rum on there. And Chris from Bacardi is with us today. Chris, if I say anything incorrect, please do not hesitate to jump in and correct me while you're here. Nothing like putting you to work while you're enjoying the class. But this one here, we're using a rum barbacore. Rum agricole, again, is just made with sugarcane. 10 cane rum is another rum that you may have seen. El Dorado, there's a couple. And what you'll notice that is different, usually it's spelled R-H-U-M. If you have a little bit, you can kind of smell the difference and taste the difference if you'd like. Secondly, we're going to be using an aged rum. For this cocktail, we have Bacardi 8-year. This is an 8-year aged rum. I think delicious and a wonderful value. Next on our list, we have Velvet Falernum. We're going to get a little eclectic with some of these ingredients.
I know what that is.
Do we double the recipe if we're making it for 2 people? Yes, you would double the recipe. You would use everything you have. So every cocktail has enough ingredients for 2 people. On the left-hand side of your sheet, you have the full ingredients, and on the right-hand side is the recipe for 1 person. Velvet Falernum is a rum-ish liqueur from Barbados that has a really unique kind of clove smell to it. Did not get any aged rum. I apologize for that. Is there a substitute? You can use the dark rum that you have in that cocktail if you'd like. That's weird. And then lastly, for alcoholic ingredients for this cocktail, we have Allspice Dram, or also called Pimento Dram. And this is a allspice flavored liqueur. One of the hallmarks of Tiki cocktails is that you are combining spice and fruit components, so sweet and spice, sweet and spicy and fruity. So with this, you have two different types of fruit juice. We have lime and orange juice. Added to that, we have bitters. We also have allspice dram and some spice from the velvet falernum. So you'll see that as a trend in Tiki cocktails, where you're mixing spice components with fresh fruit juices. In addition to that, our sweetener today is going to be a honey simple syrup. And then with your lime juice, just remember that you're using the lime juice in, I think, every cocktail. So that is one that you want to make sure that you are following the recipe as much as you can. And then lastly, for ingredients, you have a small eyedropper with bitters. It is Angostura bitters, which you kind of recognize from the oversized label. And that is another spice component. All right, enough prefacing. Let's get to making a drink. So our equipment for this is going to be a jigger, our shaker, and then we're going to need a hawthorn strainer and a glass to put it in. You can use crushed ice if you have that ability. I know some fridges have that ability. I do not at mine, but you can use crushed ice for this cocktail. All right, and as we're going to make this, we're going to make it backwards from the list. So we're going to start with our honey simple syrup, and it'll be a ½ ounce. And the reason we do this is we want to make sure that if we make a mistake, we're making a mistake with the ingredients that are easy to replace or cheaper. Next, we'll be using some orange juice. And there'll be a ½ ounce of the orange juice. And a ½ ounce of lime juice. So we have our sweetener and fruit juices already started in here. Next, we're going to get into some of the liquor ingredients. It'll be a ½ ounce of our allspice dram. Another ½ ounce of the velvet falernum. A ½ ounce of the aged rum. And then 1½ ounces of the rum agricole. These cocktails are typically a lot of ingredients. We have, what, 8 ingredients in this drink? They do like to layer flavors. Just someone just joining us here. Should there be ice in the shaker? No, you never want to put ice in the shaker first. You always put ice in the shaker last. The reason is that once you have ice in there, your cocktail is essentially starting to be made. So it's going to go through some dilution. If you get distracted, if there's a phone call, if the oven goes off, or whatever happens sort of in your kitchen when you're making this, it all could happen. And you don't want to have to get distracted and come back to a drink that's already been watered down because the ice has been sitting in it. So you want to start with just the ingredients first. Right now, we can sit, we can answer the phone, we can check on the cake in the oven, anything we want to do once we add our ice, we have to get started. The last ingredient here is the bitters. So you have, yes, the bitters is in the small plastic tube. Yes, a little eyedropper. You want to do about 2 dashes from your eyedropper there, which equals about 1 dash from the regular Angostura bottle. Okay, and then we're going to fill in ice in our shaker and ice in our glass as well. When you're filling up the ice, you want to make sure that the ice covers the liquid that you have in the shaker. You never want to just have like a little bit of ice in there. You want to make sure that it's over top of our liquid level. Pull it down, and then when we shake, we are shaking parallel to the ground. We don't want to go up and down. It's parallel. Grab our strainer. Crushed ice. Let's finish here, and then we'll talk about sort of the ice differences. Here's our cocktail here. We're going to garnish it with one of the Amarena cherries on a skewer. I prefer Amarena cherries to maraschino cherries. I just don't like the sort of the sweet candy flavor that you get from them. I like the kind of the sour, tart, sweet flavor that you get from an Amarena cherry. Crushed ice is common in tiki cocktails. How's it tasting? So you get, I think it's because you have cocktails that are sort of a little on the more alcoholic side, and the crushed ice does help dilute them and keep them together. It's also because it's like a step away from a blended cocktail. I don't really like blended cocktails. I don't like using a blender to make a drink, but crushed ice to me is the closest thing that you would get there. How is the taste changed with a dash of ice? It's just more spice. It's more complexity in the flavor. It's more depth to the flavor. These cocktails are definitely liquor forward. There's definitely some bite to it. You get kind of a few layers there. It starts off with a nice bite of the rum, and you get some spice and fruit, and then it lingers again with that rum flavor. What are your thoughts here? A little different than some of the things we've made lately.
It really has a nice spice flavor that balances with the rum.
One of my favorite tiki combinations, we're actually not making it today, is cinnamon and grapefruit. I didn't choose it for one of these cocktails, but that is sort of quintessential to me of a tiki flavor where you're adding kind of a combination that people may not think of initially, but bright citrus with a little bit of bitterness, and the spice from the cinnamon is just a perfect combination together.
Do you make the Allspice Dram yourself, or is that something you can buy in a bottle?
You can make it yourself. I bought this one. This is Bitter Truth Allspice Dram. You can make it. There are a few recipes on the internet to make it. I have not made it from scratch. I find that this brand is readily available for me and available and delicious. So I keep using that. But there are ways that you can make it yourself. Let's see. So we do also have some food pairings to touch on today. The first one is a coconut whipped cream cheese with toasted coconut and pepitas on top. And that is served with the lavash that you have. And this was actually made with Chef Mike was unavailable this week. So Chef Sean out in White Dog, Haverford made this one. Yeah, you would have to do a special liquor order to buy the Allspice Dram as well. It is not readily available at the stores. Another brand you might see is St. Elizabeth, but there are not a ton of them available. So you would have to go to a store, do a special liquor order to get these items. Pennsylvania is difficult. If only you lived in Jersey, or you might be able to find more. Yeah, rum is a spirit that's a little bit misunderstood. Where I think some people start with maybe Captain and Coke and think that spiced rum is all that is out there. It's not. There are a ton of really delicious rums to have. You can intermingle rum in other recipes. You can make Manhattan with rum. You can make an old fashioned with rum. There are delicious sipping rums. Diplomatico is a favorite of mine. That is just a really nice sipping rum that has the complexity and the caramel notes that you're familiar with other aged spirits, but also just a little bit something different so it's not always bourbon or always rye. You can also, if you really like whiskey, you can make these cocktails and just swap out one of the rums with a whiskey that you have, and try that as a sort of a different way to make it. We've made this cocktail, the 3 Dots and a Dash version, with aged rum and bourbon in place of one of the rums, and it goes off really well. Let's see. Make sure I'm caught up on questions. Did everyone was everyone able to make the drink? Any questions about the drink or really anything so far? Definitely want to take your time with these. You're gonna be, if you finish 3 cocktails, you're gonna have quite a little bit to drink tonight. So if you need to take a minute and clean off a shaker, the next cocktail we're gonna make is a Singapore Sling. So you might want to do that. Get situated. Give me a second. I will do that with my station here as well. Move out the ingredients we're finished with. Our Singapore Sling is actually a gin-based tiki cocktail. There are not many of them that don't include rum. This is one, and was sort of the reason why I chose it for this class, is to sort of showcase the variety that you can have in tiki cocktails. You can have them with rum, you can have them with whiskey if you'd like, and you can have this one with gin. So our ingredients here. Gather a few of them together. And you're going to be familiar with a few of them, probably less familiar with others. So the gin that we're going to be using is Blue Coat, again, an American dry gin, more citrus and floral notes forward than juniper. Second ingredient is Benedictine. Benedictine is a ingredient that sort of lost its way a little bit behind the bar. I think it is fantastic. Most people are probably familiar with this bottle as being a B&B. B&B was, I think, the first bottled completed cocktail. So Benedictine came first, and people started drinking it as B&B, which is Benedictine and brandy. And then they started just bottling B&B together as a standalone liquor, to the point where B&B is actually more popular than Benedictine. And I prefer Benedictine here. So it's an herbal liqueur that is delicious, and I think holds up on its own, and really is something that should be a little bit more utilized at our bars. After that, orange curacao. We're using Cointreau. And that is an orange liqueur. And then cherry hearing. So cherry is a difficult ingredient to use. It is the ingredient that I find gets you the quickest to a medicinal tasting cocktail. Everybody's familiar with cherry medicine. So when you're making cherry flavored cocktails, it's really important to be as gentle with the cherry ingredients as possible. It's always best to go lighter and add more if you'd like than to go heavier because a heavy cherry flavor is going to go very quickly to Robitussin. For that, we're going to be using pineapple juice and lime juice. And then the same bitters as well. Okay. And then the equipment set is the same as before. Jigger, shaker set, hawthorn strainer, and then we'll need a glass to put it in. I'm going to use a tall glass for this one, but it really has no preference for either. All right. If everyone's ready to go, we'll start from the bottom again. We're going to do a ½ ounce of lime juice. One ounce of pineapple. Quarter ounce of cherry hearing. Another quarter ounce of orange curacao. And a quarter ounce of Benedictine.
No.
Yep. And then lastly, it'll be 1.5 ounces of our gin. The pineapple just really comes through here on the nose, and that will change once we get this drink made. So let's ice down our shaker and our glass. Oh, I forgot the bitters. My apologies. Dash of bitters as well. Same thing as before. We're going to shake. And pour right over our ice. Our garnish here again is a cherry. And there's our Singapore Sling. How's everyone doing with it? So you'll find that some of these cocktails, especially with cocktails, it really gets, you don't really get straight answers when you're talking about where cocktails come from. The story behind this one is that it was created in the early 20th century. The story I saw was the Long Bar at the Raffles Hotel in Singapore. And it was a bartender there that created it, and it's a variation of a gin sling. But you see this where it's, if it's a bit sour and you want to adjust it a little bit, you can add a little bit of sweetener to it. You can add some of the honey if you have it left over from the last cocktail. But it is meant to be a little bit on the sour side. Now, if you think these cocktails are also meant to be drank outside in the summertime when the sun's beating down on you. I gave you more Benedictine than needed. I think so. One thing I know I did, there was a typo on the label that said 0.75 ounces for the total amount. We did try to pour just ½ ounce in there, so it may say that you got 0.75. If you got a little extra, enjoy. It was not intentionally to give everyone extra. There was just a typo on the label. You will find that when you have cocktails that have so many ingredients, you'll find variations on these cocktails depending on the recipe that you're looking at. Some may use Grand Marnier, some may use a different herbal liqueur, some may use a different cherry flavor or a different type of gin. But sort of the base bones are the same for each of these cocktails. And that's really what's important. I did try to keep it with, at least for these recipes, not changing too much from the, I think it was only one change that I made, and that was for the Mai Tai later. I tried to go with the sort of standardized recipes for each of these cocktails. There's nothing that says that you have to drink it this way. If you like a Singapore Sling with a little bit of extra honey in it, enjoy. Have it the way that you like it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. You like the drinks the way that you like them. In the 1980s, a lot of these cocktails were sweeter. That's when everything went to sort of like frozen daiquiris, and so you had cocktails that were one way and then started to be made sweeter to accommodate what was popular at the time. That's very kind of you to say. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So you find that cocktails really do adjust. Even cocktails that are as classic as something that's been made for 50, 60 years, they will adjust with the time. So in the 1980s, when cocktails went sweeter and went frozen, the Singapore Sling followed along, and the variations that were made at the time had more sweetness to them. Now, when we're doing more cocktails that are liquor forward, or even harkening back to a prohibition style when you're making cocktails, you'll find that they're more liquor forward. And that's just to allow the cocktails to bend with the times. It doesn't have to be made one way. They're meant to adjust. They're meant to be different, and they're meant to be slightly unique each time you make them. Maybe not each time, but each time you have a variation on it, each place you go to, there's going to be something a little bit different on each one. While we're talking about this, let's just do a quick food bite here. You do have a grilled pineapple salsa. with grilled pineapples, avocado, peppers, onions. This is delicious. This is one of my favorite things. I will be finishing this entire tub for dinner tonight. But you have this with some lavash as well. Hopefully you didn't finish the lavash with the first one. All right. Yeah, I definitely need a drink this week. It's been a long week. All right, everyone up to the same page. Anyone have any questions so far? Are we all square? All right, our last cocktail of the night is a Mai Tai. And this is probably the cocktail that everyone thinks of most when we get to talking about tiki cocktails. And that's one of the reasons why, the orgeat. So let's take a minute. Now that everybody has a drink and then they have some food, we can take a minute and talk about some of these ingredients for this next cocktail. There's a reason why I did this one last. So first off, with the white rum, it's Bacardi White Rum. It's a really nice standard base spirit to use for this cocktail. I know, I mean, sometimes on this very channel, we've talked about sort of some base spirits that don't live up to what they are built for. I do think the Bacardi does. I feel like that you have, you know, obviously they do have some flavors that we wouldn't necessarily use in our cocktails, but I like the Bacardi base. I think Bacardi Lime, which we use at most of the restaurants, we use this in our mojitos, is delicious for a flavored rum. The aged rum from Bacardi is also very nice. So sometimes the big names get a bad rap. I don't think that's the case with Bacardi, and that's why we wanted to work with them on this event. So it's not just because they wanted to sponsor it. We use them at those stores. If you go into one of the restaurants, you're going to see Bacardi on our shelves. You're going to see us using it in our cocktails. So the base rum here is the Bacardi White Rum. If you wanted to do something a little different, you could use a flavored rum. We could use Bacardi Lime with this cocktail if you wanted to mix it up a little bit, but just white rum is the base. So the one variation that I did with this cocktail is if you look at a recipe for Mai Tai, you're going to see no wolfberry here. You're not going to see us pimping out the Bacardi wolfberry. You're going to see it say dark rum for the traditional Mai Tai. I wanted to use Smith & Cross here. This is probably my favorite cocktail rum. It is a Jamaican rum. It is Navy strength. What Navy strength means is that it is 115 proof. And there are two stories that would go with that. The boring story is that if you have Navy strength rum, the proof is so high that it did not affect the ability for gunpowder to explode. So if you spilled rum on the ship, your gunpowder still worked. The other more fun story is that if you were in the Royal Navy and your daily allotment of rum was being watered down, you would be able to tell that it was watered down because if you mixed your rum with gunpowder and it didn't explode anymore, you knew that you were getting watered down product. It's probably more the first one, but I like the second story better. And that's the one I tell everybody. So, but anyway, this is a Navy strength rum. The directions for a Mai Tai will tell you to float the rum on top. That's up to you. I typically don't like floaters of liquor. That's just my preference. I like to have it sort of mixed in with the cocktail. But if we're going to go through the way to make it, and the way to make this cocktail does have you floating the rum on top of the cocktail as a finishing touch. again, up to you. I think it makes it so that the first sip is more rum than anything, and if that's what you're looking for, go to town. But I typically like to mix it in with my cocktail. Next, we have orange curacao, which we used already once. Cointreau, lime juice, and then orgeat. Orgeat here. Here we go. Orgeat is a difficult ingredient to make yourself. We made this yesterday, and it is a combination of almonds, sugar, orange blossom water, and brandy. We made it by making a simple syrup with sugar in the raw and caramelized sugar, and we brought that to a boil, and we diluted our caramel pieces into our sugar in the raw and made a simple syrup there that we then added ground blanched almonds to, brought that to a boil, and let the almonds steep in that syrup for a couple of hours. You can do it overnight, but we did for 3 to 4 hours. Let me just address these two questions, and we'll get back to the order. Is Myers darker? Yes, Myers is darker. It's just a little bit sweeter. I like more of the rum flavor that I get from Smith & Cross compared to Myers. Myers, it's just a little bit sweeter. You can use Gosling's if you'd like either of those two things. It's not wrong, but I just prefer the Smith & Cross here. Is there a substitution for orgeat for people with almond allergies? You can use a sweetener. If you'd like, you can use honey, maple syrup, sort of like a maple simple syrup. Those things I think would go well for somebody that cannot have nuts, but ultimately you're going to be missing out on a component. I would think maple or honey would be the directions I would want to go there, or a caramelized simple syrup where you're getting some caramel notes with it. And you can get orgeat online. It's a little bit different. And you'll see that so ours is opaque. You'll see some online that have a little bit more syrupy and a little bit more, it's just mass produced, and that's fine. But it's just a little bit different. You'll find a lot. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So my son got married in Hawaii a couple of years ago, so I had a Hawaiian themed engagement party, and I made a Mai Tai punch, and I tried to find orgeat anywhere, and it was so hard.
Yeah.
And people told me I could use like almond flavored coffee syrup even.
Yeah, you can do that. You can make a simple syrup and do like almond extract if you're getting there. You'll find that some orgeat recipes online will be a little bit more white colored if they are blending the almonds with it. There is a lot of variance on where orgeat can go in terms of the way you make it and the flavor profile. What you're looking for though is something that has sort of a nutty almond characteristic to it, and some sweetness. And I like a little bit more dark notes. That's why we used our caramel simple syrup in addition to the sugar and the raw demerara syrup. So we wanted some additional darker notes to go with the orgeat. And that's the one that I see online. There's a Liber. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Liber. Yeah, that one is pretty readily available online. You do have to be careful where you're getting this from. Sometimes you're going to get it, and it's going to be like the sort of like the coffee shop, really sweet versions of an almond syrup. So just be careful and try and find, if you're looking for it online, try and find something that is from a reputable source. If you're making it, try it. You're gonna get two things that you can make. You're going to get a syrup that is sweet and almondy, and you're gonna get almond pieces that you can then sort of bake off and use in ice cream. So you're gonna come out with two good ingredients to use. When we made this, we have the ground sweetened almonds that I gave to the chef to sort of bake off and toast and use as almond crumble on one of his dishes. So it's not something that you should shy away from trying to make, but it's not as easy to make as, you know, a honey simple syrup or a caramelized simple syrup. So with that being said, if you have a little bit, try a little bit of the orgeat by itself, just so you know the flavors that you have. I do think I would like to see a touch more almond with it, but this is the recipe that we made. So with that, let's get another drink going. Actually, before we do that, does anyone have any questions before we get started about this cocktail? So we're going to hold off the darker rum until the end. We're going to add everything else, and we'll do it the traditional way of doing the dark rum float. So we're going to do a 1/2 ounce of the orgeat. Three-quarters ounce of lime juice. Three-quarters ounce of orange Curacao. And then 1.5 ounces of white rum. All right. Proper glass for this one is going to be a rocks glass. I like using a rocks glass here. When we get to the garnish on this cocktail, you'll see why you want a wider glass here. Make sure I've caught up with everyone. Yeah, a touch more almond flavor with it might be nicer. What you could also do in the future is to sort of toast the almonds before you grind them and get a little bit of additional flavor that way. Let's see. So let's add ice to our drink. We're going to add ice to the top here. We're going to add ice to our shaker as well. All right. There is some alcohol in these drinks. All right, so let's shake our cocktail here. And then we're going to strain over top of our ice. And again, what we're talking about is a 1/2 ounce of the dark rum as a float here. And I'll just sit right on top of our cocktail here. And then as far as the garnish on this one, what I was told somewhere along the way is that it should look like an island with a palm tree of mint. So you sort of take your lime, and I have a lemon here, yes. But you take your lime, cut it in half, and just let it sit on top of your ice, and then you sit your mint in the corner. I tried to give as many of you as possible sort of the tip of the mint sprig, so you have sort of the top piece where it's some smaller pieces and it does sort of look like a tree. And that is the intended garnish on a Mai Tai, is half of a lime. If you're making it using that lime, you can squeeze that lime in as your 3/4 ounce of lime juice. But that half a lime with a mint palm tree, and cheers. So when you do the float, you really get that rum right at the top there. A squeezed lime, depending on size, I find runs about an ounce to an ounce and a half. And with the mint, if you just want to sort of just like smack it a little bit, wake it up a bit, and you get that nose. You're not meant to get it in the cocktail. You're meant to get it in the nose when you're bringing the drink up to your lips. You can make it with pineapple juice. That's a perfectly good variation on it. You can swap that in for the lime juice. Yeah, I really like the second and third sip of this one, where you are getting something that is a little more blended. And again, that is my preference. If you like it with the rum on top, you like it that way. I would like it more mixed together, where I'm getting a sort of consistent flavor throughout. While we're talking about this, I mean, tiki cocktails were meant to be, they were sort of started in the 1920s and 30s as a way of talking about sort of Pacific island culture, where it's from Polynesia and the Hawaiian Islands. And then it has sort of evolved a little bit more to be a little bit more of Asian islands as well. I want to thank you all for coming. It is really a pleasure to do these classes, and it's so much fun. It is the highlight of my week, is to do these classes with you all, and to continue doing that. And the response every week, every other week when we do them, is always overwhelming. So thank you all.